start rapping about what is going on in his life. Let's see. Matt, are you there? Oh, there you are. All right, Matt's coming on. Yo,
can you hear me?
I can hear you, man. Look at that.
Okay.
Two guys that are not the smartest. Two guys not the smartest in the world figured it out. Not too bad, huh?
Here we go.
All right.
I need an IT guy.
You are an IT guy, man.
I'm not an IT guy.
Yeah, well, you're close to it.
You think I could get Pete back?
I don't think he's a very good IT guy, actually, for the record.
He's probably
I'm not so sure.
He's probably about as good an IT guy as I am an accountant.
Probably a good idea. Probably true. Probably true.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm trying to go live into your group, but for some reason it won't allow me to. So
what group?
Your private group. Your Senna house buyers.
Let's see.
But you may not be that good. So I'm gonna go to my group.
Yeah, just go to your group.
All right. Well, Matt, thanks for being on today, brother. I appreciate it. Let me see.
White Claw already. No, unfortunately, it's just a sugar-free Monster. And I know it's probably terrible for my heart, but it's Monday.
What time is it right now down there?
What, here?
Yeah, I'm in Argentina. I'm in Buenos Aires.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah,
no, it's 1:55. It's 1:55 in the afternoon.
Cool.
I keep getting these notifications on the Zoom. Okay.
Don't let it beat you, man. You're smarter than that.
I'm trying.
Smarter than that.
It's been a day. Right. It's been a day today, so I'm just trying to make it through.
Hey, man, you want to be a king? You got to do what kings do, right?
That's right. That's
what that shit happens, right? Yeah, I know.
Yep.
I know how it is. All right, so everybody, I think we got more people jumping on here. Very excited. My very good friend, Matt Trenchard. He is the owner of Senna House Buyers here in Houston, Texas. This guy, man, when you talk about someone who just has a ton of knowledge, flips, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 properties a month. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, we'll buy 10 to 15. I'm very picky about what we flip now. Most of that will be wholesale. If we flip something, I've got like an extremely tight buy box as far as what I'm going to take down. So
cool. And we'll talk about that. And Matt and I, we've been friends for a long time. He used to actually work with us over at our management company when we owned it. And then he split off and him and his partner started Senna House Buyers, or started building that to the size it is now. But Matt, I tell you what, anyone who knows Matt knows Matt's kind of a little bit different in the sense that he is a business owner and his business flips houses, which is much different, I think, than a lot of people out there. So Matt's big in investing in himself. He's very successful, but I think, honestly, from what I've seen, Matt, and what you've done compared to a lot of other people, and, Houston's not a small town to be as successful as you are in, is that you're big on team, you're big on building structure, you're big on investing in yourself. Is that an accurate statement for you?
No doubt. It's one thing to be a wholesaler or a house flipper and be the one who's still going out talking to sellers and talking to buyers and all that kind of stuff. And that's just not what I wanted to build. I wanted to build an actual business, a company. I haven't bought a house personally in probably a year and a half, maybe. Yeah. And that's because it was like a referral from a family member, just a weird situation. So, and with that, I invest a lot in myself so I can learn how to be a better business owner. It's not like I grew up with entrepreneur parents or anything like that. I had to learn all this stuff, the old school way, just going out and doing it and messing a bunch of things up. And one thing too, is I invest a lot into my people as well. And so I'm constantly pouring into them, and I write checks every month for training and development and things for them to do so that they can be better people, get better at their jobs, because I know the better I can get at making my team better, then the better my company's going to be. So, and I've proven that time and time again over the years that I've had this company. So
I agree, man. I agree. And, you are coming to the Houston Bootcamp. You're going to be speaking at September 18th and 19th here in Houston. So it's stevesbootcamp.com for anyone that wants to sign up and be here in Houston. All-star lineup, flippers. We got Turnkey, Sean and Joni Wolfswinkle. We've got Daryl Dyke, hard money lending. We got Juan Campos talking construction. I mean, it's going to be, and we're actually touring properties and we're going to be looking at stuff. But when you and I were talking earlier and you were telling me, you said what you're going to be talking about at the boot camp, which I think is awesome. But I think I don't think people have talked about this before. At least I haven't seen it, and I've learned, my position has always been is that communicators are the wealthiest people on the planet, right? And I've learned that if you can communicate and you know how to talk to people, you will be wealthy in anything that you do. So when you said that to me, it really reminded me of that concept, going back to being a communicator. So if you don't mind, as much as you want to share about what you did in the boot camp that you were at, the Mastermind, and kind of what you're going to do at ours, and why is that a problem as a flipper wholesaler?
Yeah. So Steve and I were talking about, frankly, what I was going to talk about at the boot camp. And, anytime I speak at any kind of event, my number one question I always ask myself is, what is going to be most valuable to the people who are going to be there? I could go on for hours about very specific topics. I could go on and be very broad. And so I'm always trying to think about, how can I add the most value? What's my unique skill set? And as well as, it depends on who the audience is as well. And so Steve and I were talking, and, there's been times in the past I've talked about building a house buying company, but the reality is I don't know how many of you watching or that are going to come to the boot camp necessarily want to build a house buying company. Maybe you just want to flip some houses and be more efficient with that. Maybe you want to build a rental portfolio and build that passive income up. And so me talking about, building a wholesale company doesn't necessarily fit the bill for that. But one thing that does fit the bill is that communication that Steve was alluding to. And so one thing that I am just obsessed with, and I have been for a very long time, is being better at sales, being better at buying houses at a discount, being better about communicating with my team as a leader. And I think that's one of my kind of, what do they call it? Your special genius, right? If I had to pick one thing, I think that's one thing I'm absolutely fantastic at. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about. So we're going to get into the nitty gritty about how we at Senna House Buyers approach buying houses from people, how we communicate, how we handle objections, the kinds of questions we ask. And we're going to go very, very, very deep on that subject. And so if you've been wondering, you kind of get the gist, right? Okay, so I find a seller who's willing to sell at a discount. Well, how do I talk them into that? How do I buy a house from them? How do I communicate with them? Maybe it's talking to your contractors or talking to another wholesaler. This will be helpful for any of you, no matter what you're trying to accomplish. You're going to get some really good tips on just general communication as well as general sales, because I have been obsessed. I mean, I probably spend about $100,000 a year just on coaching for myself, not counting the coaching I get from my team. And usually it's centered around some type of communication or sales topic, because it's so translatable no matter what you're doing.
Well, I think, this to me, and again, I'm a big believer. I mean, I when we had our company, we had sales members, I was fanatical about scripting and understanding people's global values and really understanding, like when you talk to someone and somebody says, I'll give you an example, and I remember when I was wholesaling, I didn't know how to swing a hammer. The only thing I could do was talk and negotiate. Yeah. So when I was wholesaling, I was good at that. And I, again, like you, I doubled down on that. And I used to, when somebody says, well, how much will you give me? The biggest problem I think people do is they think, oh, they asked me, so they want top dollar, and they clam up, and they don't understand that there's no rule anywhere that says if they ask you a question that you have to actually answer that question. And that was a big aha moment. But honestly, I look at it as understanding how the human mind works, but more importantly, what is valuable to them. Right? What's valuable to you is, they may say, hey, I've got family overseas. I want to get to them as quick as I can. And they're willing to trade their time and their money for the speed that you're going to offer them. And so again, it's very, and I'm sure, you get a lot of people that thank you, right? You got the great price on the property, but they thank you because you solved their problem, right?
Oh my gosh. This is case in point. Right now, we have a deal that's probably very strange situation. There's a third party involved. It's going to close probably around December. We're making 130 grand on it. And this lady has cried numerous times on the phone and talked about what a godsend we were, because nobody could figure out how to get her out of the situation she was in. Right. And so, okay, I can tell that story at the boot camp because it's going to be a lot closer to closing. But all it was what you talked about. We figured out what was important to her, and the money wasn't the most important thing. And the reality is most people think the money is the most important thing for most people. And the reality is it isn't. You'd be surprised if you ask yourself how often throughout the day you are actually choosing comfort, speed, convenience over money. You do it in your everyday life. You do it when you order something from Amazon, right? You do it if the people that fly first class in an airplane, they're going the same place as the guys in the very back, right? But they pay for that because they want more room, because that's worth it to them, right? It doesn't change anything. So the key is understanding the difference between value and price. And that's what I'm always preaching. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Where do you think, so people that are wholesaling, let's say, look, you've gone through your trials and tribulations. You've had your good weeks, your bad years. Like everybody has their war wounds, right? So if somebody wanted to get into wholesaling and flipping, right? They wanted to go down this path. Like, what advice would you give them? Where do you start? Do you learn numbers first? Do you learn negotiating? Like, what do you learn first to be successful?
I would learn sales first, 100%. I would learn sales first, because no matter what you're doing, you're selling. Whether you're wholesaling, whether you're flipping houses, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You have to know how to. And listen, let me back up. So there might be some people listening who are like, oh, sales is such an icky word, and I don't like it, and I don't want to do it, and I'm not good at it, and I don't want to pressure people. And, they just have that general negative connotation, negative feeling to sales. If anybody watching this or anybody thinking about coming to the boot camp is thinking that, you are exactly the person who needs to come to the boot camp and hear the information that we're talking about, because that's not what it is. In fact, poor salespeople are pushy and aggressive and icky and liars. Great salespeople are almost exactly the opposite. And so we're going to get into why that's important and also how you can implement that. So going back to your original question of what's the first thing I would learn, it's 1000% it would be sales. Because here's the thing. If you're great at sales and you mess the numbers up, you still have great rapport with the seller, and you can go back and say, hey, Steve, I made a mistake, man. And this is why, this is what happened. And you can have a real person-to-person conversation because you're a great communicator, and you can overcome a lot of other deficiencies, because you might be the best property analyst in the world and you nail the ARV and the construction and the offer number so well. But if you are the world's worst communicator, you're never going to have somebody say yes to you. They're not going to want to do business with you. And so if you can overcome so many downsides. Listen, I'm not the smartest dude in the world. I'll be the first to admit that. Okay. And I'm not great with details. I'm not great with numbers, but I'm great with people, and I'm great talking to people. And so that skill overcomes the other ones so many times.
Well, and what I used to always tell people, is when you're in a conversation, you're either selling or you're getting sold. It's one or the other, right? So what you don't understand is you're always selling, right? You're selling on value. You're selling on, whether it's your kid, whether it's a date, whatever it is, you're trying to close someone, and either you're closing them or they're closing you. So I completely agree. And a lot of people don't understand, like, and look, let me say this, and some people may disagree. I'd be curious to hear, but what you do and what I do and what people in real estate do has nothing to do with four walls and a roof. It has nothing to do with what we're doing. It's all about relationships. It's about establishing rapport, and it's about executing on that and doing what you say you're going to do. I think the biggest challenge why people in the flipping wholesale industry have a bad rap is they don't do what they say they're going to do, and they don't establish the correct rapport, and they're not bringing value to what the person needs, and they don't understand the motivation. I think and again, I go back to, they didn't establish the right rapport, and they didn't have the right communication with people, is what I think.
I agree. I completely. I mean, it's obviously it's rampant in my neck of the woods and in my niche with wholesaling, that people don't do what they say they're going to do. They're dishonest. They're vague. They talk in gray area. We are exactly the opposite. We are so transparent with people. And frankly, I could probably buy 30% more houses a month if I was shady. but that's not worth it to me. You know, it's not worth it to me. And so when you, believe me, I'm maniacal. I tell my guys, I'm like, listen, if you tell the seller you're calling them at 2:00 in the afternoon, do not call them at 2:01. Do not call them at 2:02. Call them at 2:00, because every little thing you say is a little micro promise, right? Yep. When you say I'm going to call you at 2, you're really saying, I promise you, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. I'm going to call you at 2. And the more times you can reiterate that in a conversation with somebody, especially in a sales process, no matter how small, subconsciously, those things are stacking up. Man, this guy said he was going to call me at 2, call me at 2. Said the next step was this, the next step was that. Said this is exactly how it's going to go down. This is exactly how it went down. And the more you can do that, that's really how you build rapport with people. It's not, oh, hey, Steve, I know you fly, I fly. Like, that helps. It does. Yeah. But that's not true rapport building. True rapport building is being a person of your word, right?
I agree. So let me ask this. So so for those of you that just jumped on, I know a little late. So we're doing a boot camp here in Houston, September 18th and 19th. Matt is actually going to be talking about how he basically structures his deals from the negotiation part, right? So Matt, you were at a mastermind that you were a member of, and you started talking more.
I'm a paying client. I've paid tens of thousands of dollars to be there. So
explain what happened.
I was there last weekend. We meet quarterly in person. And this is guys from all over the country. If you're plugged into the real estate world, you've probably know a handful of them. But somebody asked me, they had gotten wind that I have this particular pitch when I'm buying houses from people. And so next thing I know, I'm just kind of explaining it to this one guy, then another comes over and another comes over. And then everybody starts crowding around me to the point where the guys in the mastermind were like, hey, do you mind if you get up and speak and break this down? And I'm like, sure, no problem. And so I get in front of the room and I tell these guys who are all, I mean, there's got guys doing plenty more business than I'm doing. And they're like, how do you do this? And I'm like, man, you just do it, you know? So I kind of broke that pitch down, and I had multiple people come up and tell me like, dude, this was you speaking for 10 minutes was worth me coming this entire weekend. So, which obviously feels good on the ego for sure, but it just goes to show that even guys who are out there doing a ton of business still, if they have the right mindset, have so much to learn too. And I'm myself included, which is why I'm there.
But you know what? It just goes to show that is why what you're doing and what you're going to be talking about at the boot camp and just what the type of person you are, that just tells me how valuable that is. Because look, you can get a deal, right? You throw enough shitty offers out there, you're going to get someone that does it, right? But how do you do it consistently, making your life easier, getting, and more importantly, what a lot of people don't think about, and I know you do, but how do you get them to refer business to you so you can get your client acquisition costs down? There's so many more things. When you establish that rapport, that is the thing. And I think it's so valuable that people just think like, oh, I'm flipping houses, I need to learn how to analyze numbers. Well, yeah, you do. But you know what? If you never even get past the phone call, it doesn't matter if you can analyze deals, because nobody's going to give you, you're not going to establish rapport. And it's not just locking up the deal. It's keeping them on your side the whole way through the transaction to get spit out the back end, especially when you're wholesaling something. Because look, we all know shit happens, right? I mean, we did that episode for Bigger Pockets, remember? And you showed me that property that was, what was it like? I don't know. How many months were you dealing with that? The title issue one? Do you remember that one? We walked.
Man, which one was that?
It was in Spring Branch. And it was
yeah. We dealt with that for like 8 or 9 months, I think. And we finally got it closed.
And you were the only one that basically, because of the rapport, right? I mean, that's the only reason they stuck it out with you over that deal. That just goes to show that you can find deals. And I've got to imagine nowadays people flipping, wholesaling, it's probably not easy because everyone's a flipper, everyone's a wholesaler. So you've got to be able to have something that sets you apart. And I think because that communication you take anywhere with you, right? I mean, I am such a believer. I mean, I was trained by Marshall Silver and these other people, and I am fanatical about it. And I think that if you don't practice it, if you don't script it out, I mean, all professional athletes in the world script out their plays, right? You're playing a football, baseball, and those are scripted.
Over and over and over.
Yeah. But then you get someone who says, I'm a professional flipper. And I go, how often do you practice your scripts? And they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, oh, that's canned. I don't do that. I'm like, that's why you're not successful. You've got to practice it till you own it. And when you own it, that's when you'll be successful, when you can do it. And it's your script written by you, created by you. But again, with a certain order, and it's not just popping off the mouth like people do all the time, you know?
Yep. And look, for a very long time, that's what we did. So me and my former partner, he was also very, very good at sales as well.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have a defined script or process because frankly, us being good at sales naturally, it was almost like in a way a handicap because we relied on our natural instincts so much.
Yeah.
The problem was when we started hiring people and training people, it was kind of like our training program was like, here, just listen to me on the phone and watch me do this. Like there was no repeatable process. Which made it hard to practice. So we didn't. Made it hard to manage and train and coach. So we didn't. And then next thing I know, I'm like, man, why are we running through salespeople left and right? Well, it's because we don't have a repeatable process to train them and manage them off of, which I do now. And so sometimes if you're watching and you're one of those people who's actually really good at sales, just naturally, you got to be careful because you can rest on your laurels and you just kind of get set in your ways and you do the same thing over and over when it may not be the best, most efficient way to do it. And going back to the practice piece, you know, one thing we do all the time is we have 2 role play sessions a week with my sales guys. And every Friday I have a one-on-one with them every week, like clockwork. And we review a call and in depth break that call down to the point of, you didn't ask them how their day was, right? Yeah. Why didn't you ask them how their day? Oh, I forgot. I just went right into it and yada, yada, yada. It's super important. And ever since I implemented that, if anybody in here has consistently bought houses as whether wholesaling or flipping or whatever, you know, a lot of times you can go real chunky, right? You'll buy 5 houses in a month and then you won't buy any the next month. And then you buy 10 and then you buy 2 and it's just all over the place. I think it's been, I want to say I got to go back and count. It's been like 16 or 17 weeks that I have not bought a house. And it's because we consistently train, we consistently review, we practice. In my sales team, in those meetings, we can identify very, very small things that are having a big effect. Because look, in a market like this, when it's super, super competitive, it's like football. You know, they always say football is a game of inches. Well, guess what? So is buying houses at a discount. Okay. And you never know which little piece is going to be the one that makes her say yes to me and no to you. Right. Yeah. I don't know if that's the way I had the call. I don't know if it's the fact that we call them when we say we're going to call them. You never know. And so I tell my guys,
some of the parts.
It's the sum of the parts, and you never know which one's going to be the tip of the iceberg. And so you better nail every one of them, which is why when we do these call reviews with my team, I get into the nitty gritty and I'm like, you missed this one little piece, You got to fix it. We got to get better at it. But because of that, I've been able to implement significantly more consistency to our house buying.
And, you know, one thing that I used to do, and I don't know if this helps you, is I would get my salespeople, and every week, each one of them had to send me 3 things that they could not answer. So 3 challenges that they said, man, I don't know that. And then what I would do is I would either make a video recording of it so that I started creating a video library, because I'm thinking if they have the question, maybe another salesperson does. Yeah. And then I don't have to keep repeating myself. But then we would come up with a solution as a team of saying, okay, how do we all overcome this? So each salesperson had to give me 3 things that they couldn't answer that week. And then we would come up with answers for it. Like, okay, how would you guys answer it? And we would role play and we'd hear it from each different salesperson, and each different person had a different way they would answer it. And we'd be like, oh man, I never really thought of saying it that way. And then I would record a video of it so that they have it in the video library. So if anyone in the future, as you hire and fire and all that, you've got now, you know, and I had Empire Academy. I had like 500 videos made just on scripting and sales, because that's the questions that if they're not answering it, that's not going away. You can't just ignore it, you know. And the better way to do it is and I don't know if you're gonna talk about this, but it's a good idea is to be like, hey, you may be wondering, how does this affect you with taxes? Well, let me explain this to you. So now all of a sudden it was an objection in their mind, or it was an objection that they didn't even know they had. And they're like, oh man, this guy answered that question. and you just establish more of a rapport. And you're like, and you may be thinking, what is the speed to make this happen? Let me explain that to you. And so all of a sudden what you're doing is you're taking, how it is, you're taking away objections before they even have them. That to me was a great way to close people very easily by answering all their questions. And so let me ask you, is this something that you're going to be digging deep into when you come to Houston, or not come to Houston, but when you speak?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And it's funny you say that because, a lot of times people, especially people who have had zero sales training ever, right? The people always want to know, how do you overcome this objection? Like, how do you overcome your price is too low? It's number one objection you get in buying houses at a discount. Your price is too low. I've yet to meet a person who we made our first offer and they just said, I absolutely love it. Right. Yeah. Every single time it's always a price is too low. Okay. And the reality is those main objections that you're thinking in your head, they are so far from the ones that actually end up getting in the way of the deal getting done. Absolutely. And so not understanding that and just being anxious about, okay, here it's time, it's price time. Here we go.
I knew it was going to happen. Oh gosh.
We're at that point. Yeah. They want 100. I'm at 70. Oh my God. The reality is that there's probably some other factors that you haven't talked about or uncovered, like you were just alluding to, that really are the things that are making the difference in that person making a decision or not. And here's the thing. Most people, because at this point, they understand they're in a sales process. They're quote across the table from a sales guy, and they're anxious about it. They're not going to tell you, hey, I'm actually a little nervous about this thing over here. Do you mind if we talk about that? They're just going to keep it in the back of their head. And if you don't talk about it, it's going to get in the way of you getting a deal.
And dude, so I can't wait till you come and talk about this. I'm gonna have to jump in, man, because I love this stuff. But the one thing I've learned is that you have a bigger problem with it than they do normally, right? You're sitting there dreading it, and they're like, oh, I knew they were gonna ask about this and that, blah blah. But they just don't know what to ask, because you leave this void, and they're like, how much you want for my house? That seems low. And you're going to go, oh man, I knew it. I knew that's what they were going to do. This sucks. I can't do this. And it's like, you just didn't understand. You're not establishing rapport. So anyways, look, man, I don't want to take your day. So you are coming to Houston in our boot camp, September 18th and 19th. For those of you that want to come, we're almost sold out, actually, believe it or not. We have a few seats left. It's stevesbootcamp.com. So it's stevesbootcamp.com. But again, this is going to be awesome. You're going to hear from Matt. I may have to jump in a little bit, man, and get some of my tips and tricks, because I just think that is so valuable, man. It is definitely going to be the key. I love talking about this stuff. I love it. And I get passionate about it. I'll probably get in trouble for going over time. I don't care. It's my event, man. You can go as much as you want, bro.
All right. So whoever's behind me, let them know. You might start at 1, you might start at 2. We just don't know yet. So
I'm with you.
But I'm passionate about it because I think it's so important. I think it's so valuable. Even if this wasn't a real estate thing, learning how to communicate and how to sell is such a huge tool to have in your arsenal. And it's not.
I agree.
And again, I want to stress, especially if anybody wasn't on that when I talked about this earlier, I want to stress so much that if you're nervous about selling, or you get a bad feeling, or you hear the word and you're like kind of icky, then this is perfect for you, because that's not what it's about. And you're going to learn that you don't have to be this greased-haired back used car sales type that you're probably thinking to be effective at sales. So I want anybody who's hesitant about that, like, this is absolutely perfect for you.
And this isn't just selling, flipping, or wholesaling. This is like understanding how to communicate. That's why I think it's so important. Yeah. Like, I don't care. Every day you are selling someone, right? Whether it's wearing a stupid mask or whatever it is you're doing, you're getting closed or you're closing them. I don't care what it is. And if you don't have that skill set of learning how to communicate, you're just showing them how to be a master communicator and make a shitload of money flipping properties and doing wholesale. You're just using that as the vehicle, but it doesn't matter what it is what the product is that you're selling. Now, all of us are into real estate, so we're going to have all these people, but whether it's a tenant, whether it's a contractor, whether it's a seller, whether it's a buyer, this is all negotiating. And that's why I think it's so important, man. So,
and look, to be clear, so the content will definitely be geared towards buying real estate. Okay.
Yes.
That'll be a lot of the examples, and a lot of the content's going to be geared towards that. However, I'm going to explain why we do the things that we do and why we say the things we say in that process. So you can see the why and the psychology behind how humans make decisions, which that is the piece of the material that you could carry over to anything that you're doing. Right. Yeah. So to be clear, it'll be geared towards buying houses, but I'm going to explain the background and the why and how come it works from a psychological and scientific perspective as well. So,
dude, it's gonna be good. So for those of you that want to come, go to Steve's Bootcamp.
I'm like more excited now because I'm talking about it.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. So everybody, if you want to come, stevesbootcamp.com. And it's going to be September 18th and 19th. And not only are we going to have all these experts, but we're actually going to walk properties. We're actually got a tour bus. We're actually going to some turnkey properties where we can all talk about what you need to look for. So this is actually going to be hands-on, along with some networking and happy hour and all that stuff. But this is going to be cool because not only are we going to be in the classroom, we're actually going out onto the jobs of seeing properties that Sean and Joni, and if obviously, you know, if you're going to have any under contract, we can get in.
My inventory changes so fast. So it'll be a game time decision on my end. But if we have something that's easy for us to go by, we'll absolutely throw it in the mix.
Awesome. Awesome, brother. All right. Everybody, don't forget 18th, 19th of September, the Houston Bootcamp. It's going to be awesome. Matt's going to be there talking about how to get the negotiations from beginning to end, dealing with it. He's going to break it down. It may be a couple hours from what it sounds like, but it's going to be a good one. So again, I'll put the comments, I'll put the link in the comments, but it's stevesbootcamp.com. Check it out. It's going to be a good one. And there's going to be some serious education and networking and relationships and stuff. And
for sure,
Matt, maybe you'll have a couple deals there as well to be able to show or sell.
Sure.
Maybe.
If y'all want to come and buy all my inventory, I would absolutely love that.
All right, Instagram, we're out of here. Facebook, we're out of here. We'll talk to everyone later, and we'll see you September 18th and 19th. Bye-bye.
Cool.
All right. That's